If you are a B2B service-based business owner and you are looking to gain more clients, create more impact and more revenue in your business, tune in to Amplify Your Marketing Message with Christine Campbell-Rappin. Every week, we're going to take you through how to build an audience of buyers, mastering your marketing message, and making offers that convert consistently. We'll see you all on the inside. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited to have today's conversation because I think in the world where it's super hard to stand out, you might be making it more complicated than it needs to be. We're going to take you old school and talk about direct mail. Yeah, real, live, tangible mail to help you grow your business. Because truthfully, my expert that is going to stay with me today and I will tell you, this is a hugely underutilized opportunity to build relationships, to stand out from a sea of sameness, and to truly bring the human back into your marketing efforts. So I'm super excited to introduce you today, our guest. This is Mr. Phil Goodhart. Super excited to have you here today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Pleasure to be here. I'm a big fan of the work you're doing and hope we'll have a fun discussion today.
Thank you. We absolutely will. So I want to start with the elephant in the room, which is maybe even people don't know. What is direct mail? And why should we be using it in the first place?
Yeah, that's fair. Well, put it this way. I have to be careful whenever I am describing physical direct mail, and that's what direct mail is and always was, physical mail, the kind that goes through the postal system. You know, I have to be careful because if I say inbox or mailbox, people think I'm talking about their email, and I'm not. The mailbox is a very much underutilized channel for communicating with people. It's been around a really long time. Back in the day, let's say 1980s, 1990s, it was the way to communicate on a mass basis for fundraising, cataloging, selling financial services, pretty much anything. Credit cards, I recall, that was really huge. And it's funny, I don't know why I thought of this just yesterday, but I was thinking about how sort of discouraging it was to see the volume of promotional mail over the years. It was, you know, at a very high level, as I said, in the 80s, 90s, and stayed pretty heavy until the early 2000s. Then when the internet came along, it started plummeting. And I now realize that, like in most things in life, you have to turn lemons into lemonade. So the lemons are, oh gosh, people aren't using, the mail as much. Well, the lemonade is, that's a great opportunity for all of you because it's not being used.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, it's funny in my country right now, and this might date our episode, but we are in a national strike around mail. And of course, we're in one of the biggest seasons of physical things being delivered. And it is such an opportunity to stand out. And I think it's interesting because you talked about credit cards. Yes, I still get credit cards in the mail all the time. Please come by our credit card services. And we do see a lot of charitable giving. And I know you have a real passion for the not-for-profit sector. But expand our minds now. If we are not a bank and we are not a not-for-profit trying to fundraise and find our donors, is direct mail as relevant to everybody else?
It should be. That's the argument I will make. There's a very specific part of the economy that has taken to direct mail and uses it very effectively. And those are basically local retailers and service providers. I continually get postcards from realtors, dentists, pizza parlors, you name it, tree surgeons, landscapers, HVAC. And that's because they work, they do physical work or provide a physical product. They work in a targeted area. And it's actually very efficient to reach people through essentially what I call a saturation mail program called USPS Every Door Direct, and Canada may or may not have an equivalent. I'll defer to you on that.
We do.
But,
Yep,
but
we do.
yeah, but the beauty of it is it's you choose your neighborhoods, and it may be based purely on distance. It might be based on the income makeup, the age of the households in those areas. But the point is, it's really easy. It's a really easy way to reach people. And that's mostly what I see. To me, the missed opportunity is from what are now online retailers that 40 years ago were catalogers, um, print advertisers in magazines, newspapers. And I get why they all moved away from print to digital. It certainly at the time, it was far more effective, far less costly, and with the response rates you got back in the day, very effective. That's been that metric has been sort of decreasing over time. And now that it's become easier and easier to send more and more digital messages to people, and promotions in particular, as you noted earlier, there's this wall of sameness, and there's a lot of noise in my mind. And it's not that they aren't effective, it's just it's much more difficult to get attention. Whereas when I open my mailbox on any given day, there might be 3 or 4 pieces of mail. A lot of them are postcards now, which is interesting because that sort of eliminates the need to get someone to quote unquote open the envelope. But, compare that to your electronic inbox. Most people I know who are active in businesses or other activities for that matter, you can get hundreds of emails in a day. So it's not that you might not pay attention and see things, it's just the odds are much, much lower. So the visibility, the open rate, and ultimately the impact response rate for direct mail is much higher. Oh, but Phil, it's much more expensive, isn't it? Yes, but you have to do the math. So digital is less expensive, but the response rates are a lot lower, depending on what that comparison is between printed ads and digital ads. You could end up with a higher return on investment with direct mail than, say, native ads or display ads. Email, that's a little bit of a tougher argument to make because for most people, sending out email is close to free. Therein lies its challenge, of course. You want to do it, but when something is low cost or no cost, it gets overused, which is why there are so many emails that drop in your electronic inbox and only a handful in the physical mailbox.
There was two golden nuggets there, and I want people to talk about this first off. We're not saying direct mail would replace every other type of marketing you're doing. It
No,
is
no,
a
no.
way to break through and add that real high touch experience, which is so important in the world of especially service-based businesses. The second piece, which I think is really important, is to shift your mindset around the cost of marketing to the return on an investment.
Yes.
And I know I love and I do send physical cards, physical gifts, physical experiences. And some of my favorite episodes here on this podcast have always been about that physical experience. Because when people come in to hire my services and the business that we support, they are wanting a high touch, human to human physical experience. And so when you're looking at that ROI, it's like if you send something out and it costs you $1, but you bring in a client that brings you $100 revenue or $1,000 revenue, I would write that check every day. And I want you to think about the ROI for a second of your business, which means you should be tracking your ROI. Okay, let's just start with that business fundamental just by our small rant there for a second. But think of this as a plus and think of this as a way to boost the effectiveness. And the reason I have an answer for why there are more postcards, particularly in the US, I would honestly have to check this in Canada, but in the US, you have to pay less postage on a postcard than you do a physical letter mail. And so one of the most effective strategies I've seen, and I've been receiving end of it, is you send me something and call me and say, did you go find the red thing in your inbox, in your physical mailbox? Go do it. When you do, I'm going to call you in 24 hours. I want to talk about what we sent you. And you better bet your bottom dollar I'm trying to find my mail key. I want to know what you sent me. And you have a captured audience when you can create that kind of movement. And that's where the fun begins, which is why we're saying so powerful and underutilized. And so we're talking physical stuff. So given your expertise, and you've been in this industry and have a great perspective to bring, you've shared with us it should be an and. You've shared with us look at the ROI, and you've said physical stuff. How does the mom and pop or somebody who is smaller in their business versus a big McDonald's or someone else who still sends you coupons in the mail, let's just remind you here, how do we all get started when we start to think about direct mail and it being on our horizon this coming year?
Fair enough. Well, let's start at sort of the lowest volume execution. If you're a professional service provider, I know I do this, and I think you've basically said the same thing. If I have what feels like a productive, friendly phone call with a potential client, I make sure to ask them for their physical address before I get off the call. And I wish I could get myself to actually handwrite the card and mail it. That is absolutely the best way to do it. And you'll get a huge bang for your very little buck in doing so. I use an online sort of digital customize postcard or letter service that allows me to use, a scripted font. I can include a picture, my logo, website address, and I customize the content to say, thank you so much for sharing your time. I look forward to continuing our discussion about fill in the blank, if you will, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody can do that. And you don't have to have any fancy systems to do it. You don't need to have, really, I mean, everyone can do that. The next level up, if you are a hyper geographically targeted organization, such as the ones I mentioned before, it really, the tools in place are pretty close to do it yourself. If you can use Canva, you can decide a postcard. The post office can give you the specifications, say for a 6x11 jumbo postcard, which you do have to arrange for the printing of it. But by the way, when you go on the USPS ordering system to find the neighborhood you want to mail, there are links to local printers. So basically, you order the names, you order the printed cards, and you can take them down yourself to the post office. You fill out a little paperwork, and in the mail they go. I think you can mail up to 5,000 a day as a small mailer. If you want to go bigger than that, which you can, there's bulk mailing procedures. Again, though, for this very, bring them to the post office sort of approach.
One of the things that has been the biggest impact I have felt, been talked about, and created mass opportunity in my own career was the physical writing of cards. I'm going to credit my mother to this. My mother is Emily Post, and I was never allowed to play with a gift until I'd written the thank you card. Mm-hmm. And so that was my upbringing. And so in my corporate career, in my computer bag, everywhere I traveled was a stack of cards.
Yeah.
In my office, there are 3 stacks of cards within eyeball distance to me right now. And my goal, as I was getting on the plane to head home, was to send thank you cards for all the people that I had met during that week on business and mail them before I left the airport. And to this day, I still have the same habits. And truthfully, one of the best gifts I ever received was this that you see behind me here. If you're in the video experience, was a gift. It says business growth is elegantly simple. It's a poster that goes on my wall. I say it so often. Someone noted it and sent me, made it in Canva, shipped it to me, and sent me business thank you cards that are identical to that. And
That's
every new client
cool.
gets one. And they go, oh, yeah, that's what's in her office. And then they always know when I'm at my office. Like, this is a huge branding opportunity. And it is simple. And I love that you talked about there are services that if you don't want to buy cards and you don't want to physically do it, maybe that's not where you start. But we're saying very clearly, start where you can. Use this to build tools. And if you do not want to be the person that is physically writing the cards, I will tell you, I have a client in my business that will do it for you. And she has a whole business about being that concierge, high contact customer experience person in the business. And it is so worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one other follow on to that, because you're dead right, is, sort of it's sort of a specific use case, though it is about what we're talking about, which is years and years ago, direct mail was used on for prospecting purposes for B2B. And it worked a lot better then for a couple of reasons. One was people stayed in their jobs longer,
Mhm.
so you could actually find the right people and have some hope of reaching them at the office you mailed the piece to. The other was simply that a lot of people don't work in an office anymore. So it's very difficult to know, which is why I mentioned before, whenever I speak to somebody, I will explicitly ask them, say, I'd like to send you something. Where can I reach you? Because, hey, they may be associated with a company that they work virtually for. So sending a card there is not going to do a whole lot of good. Um, but that all being said, once you have a relationship, direct mail can be used for all the things we're talking about. It could be to thank a customer in a big way. I mean, maybe you send a big gift basket. Maybe you send a teaser piece. I remember somebody telling me they mailed people little box knives with a message that, hey, you're wondering why I sent you this? Keep an eye on your mailbox. The idea being he's going to send a package a week later. So now build up this anticipation. So when the package showed up, you'd pull out the knife and you'd open up the package and surprise whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely on the same page with all that. Oh, one other point I would add though, if you're needing to do something that's more national, in other words, more based on what people are like, what they do, what they need, rather than where they live, that does start to get a little bit more difficult. There are many service providers out there, myself included, who can arrange for figuring out who you should be mailing to, how to organize the logistics to do so. On a per piece basis, definitely more expensive than the saturation approach I talked about.
Mhm.
But you need to be weighing the difference between getting the right people and getting everybody within a certain area.
Yeah.
Even though it's more expensive, it could end up being far more efficient because you're figuring out specifically who to mail rather than say, oh, I want anybody in this zip code or what have you. You know, the saturation might be good for people who all have yards and need to have their grass cut, but it might not be nearly as useful if you're selling fishing lures and you need to find people who fish.
Yeah.
So that's an important issue to consider, whatever your business is.
I love that we talk about there are different reasons, there's different levels of investment, there's different levels of purpose. And there was an elegantly simple advice that you gave. I'm going to restate it for everybody. Stop wandering around like a chicken with your head cut off saying, well, how do I get the addresses? It's really simple. You ask.
Exactly.
And I love that you said when we're working virtually, sending a gift or something to a head office, which might just be a post office box, isn't necessarily going to have the same breakthrough that you're looking for. And our goal with direct mail is breakthrough and high contact results that have a lingering impression with somebody. It's very simple.
Exactly.
Ask them. And if somebody doesn't want to share their address, you respect that. But you can say, truthfully, I want to send you something. And if it is thoughtful, it is with good intent, people will meet you halfway. But don't see this as a one and done. This is a part of an integrated strategy to help you amplify your message. It is to help you move the needle. And I'm such a fan of it. It's funny when you talk about those boxes. When I was living in the world of corporate, we had an incentive trip that we took our partners on every year. And the first thing that dropped was always a box that went to every reseller partner that we had with clues of where we were going next. And it would include sunscreen or beaches or shot glasses or something very specific to that region,
Right.
which started to tease their, I want to go there. And the interesting thing, when direct mail is working, when they show up at the event and they're bringing some of that memorabilia to you. It lives. It has a huge echo. And so I love what you're doing, and I love that you're going to support people in making impact with direct mail. I want to ask you this because I ask every guest that comes onto the platform, what's working for you right now to build momentum, to attract more clients, and to create breakthrough with your business?
Well, I appreciate that question. As you know, so much of generating new business starts with relationships to people you may know either personally or in business, having conversations, getting to know one another, and then helping identify people each of you may know respectively who can advance you to somebody who actually needs your business in a very specific way. Sometimes you get lucky, and that's connecting from A to B. Sometimes it takes connecting A to B to C, and sometimes D. One thing, I think I've shared this with you, something I've kind of come up with as a little bit of a hack, because one thing I have learned is we often just don't know, or I should say, don't remember who we know that would be beneficial for you to meet. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about this in detail, but I've come up with a way to leverage each other's LinkedIn connections, knowing that the challenges there are most of us have a lot of them. Most of us don't really know very well most of them, which makes it a challenge, even though we know, I must know somebody who would be a good client for you, Christine, but I just can't remember. And I don't have that talent of being able to just say, oh yeah. And there are people who are really great at that, but I'm not. I need something to help me retrieve it.
I love that. Guys, your network is incredibly powerful, and your relationships return based on the effort you put into them. So we hope we've inspired you to step up, slow down, create magic physically in the presence of your network and your next client. Phil, thank you for being our guest. How do people find you to connect you and ask you about this strategy that you are so successful with?
Thank you. Well, the two easiest ways are by phone. My phone number is area code 203-543-5039, or by email. It's phil@pmgmktsolutions.com. That's PMG, my initials, MKT for marketing, solutions.com. And I look forward to hearing from you.
Guys, go connect to Phil. You definitely want to embrace this. This will really transform your business, and think of this as your and story. Phil, thanks for being our guest today. Everyone, be back here for your next episode. And until then, get out there and go build human-to-human connections and amplify your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode. That's a wrap on another amazing episode of Amplify Your Marketing Message with me, your host, Christine Campbell-Rappin. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss another great episode. And be sure to visit christinecampbellrappin.com/podcast to get a free resource on how to master your marketing message. We'll see you all on our next episode.